And if you could turn off the waiting room at this point, please. Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Well, welcome. We're about to get started today. I'm Vivian New. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm the president of the Santa Clara Valley chapter of the California Native Plant Society, and welcoming you to a fantastic program we have tonight with Dee and Ken Himes, who are going to be taking us around the world, a little bit different than our usual visits in California. But before we get started, let me tell you about some other things that our chapter is doing. We have a lot of virtual events, a lot of fun things. The highlight actually is that we are actually going to have a fall plant sale this year. We're very excited about that. It will be online, so you get to do all of the shopping from the comfort of your own home. And then you can come by our nursery on October 17th. You have to sign up for a slot to pick up your plants. So we're going to be kicking that off with another one of these live sessions on October 10th, where we'll give you a virtual tour of the nursery. And Chris is going to do his planting demo, so you'll learn how to plant your plants successfully. And then we will also have nursery volunteers and some other people there to answer your questions. So if there's anything you wanted to know about the plants you want to buy, we'll be there to answer them. And then we'll also have a photography group. We have this really fun photography group, and they share pictures, and anyone is welcome to join and participate. If you don't have any pictures to share and you just love to look at pretty pictures, you're welcome to join. It's a lot of fun, and that's going to be on October 14th. It's the second Wednesday of every month. And then we're going to have another program on Thursday, October 21st. And that will be with Julie Evans from the state CNPS office. And she's going to be talking about the vegetation mapping program and the botanical landscapes in California. And at the end of October, we're going to be going a little bit outside just plants with Amit Zaveri, who's going to be showing us some amazing pictures of Bay Area fauna as well as flora. And he's an incredible photographer. He's done a lot of looks through a lot of places in the Bay Area, and he'll be sharing that with us. He often joins us at the photo group. So if you want to see some of his work, stop by the photo group. And that's not all. We are constantly adding more events. So if you would like to stay informed, and I strongly suggest that you do so, if you're not already on our email news group, please go ahead and join. The address is down there, or you can just go to our website, cnps-scv.org, and there's information on how to join. We don't send a lot of messages, but basically just once a week, we let you know what's going on. And once again, as I mentioned before, we are having our fall plant sale, and that will be starting on October 10th at 10 o'clock. So 10, 10, 10, easy to remember. You can join us for the online session, or you can start shopping. Actually, the store is going to open after we're done with the session. So just be aware that you can start shopping on October 10th. And that actually, if you like our t-shirts, you can get them at the store too. And if you're enjoying these sessions and you're interested in helping us out, if you're familiar with Zoom, actually, even if you're not, we'll train you. We're looking for more people to help us with co-hosting and moderation. If you're into YouTube and you're familiar with any of the video editing tools there, we'd also love help there. And if you'd like to do any of that, please contact our Vice President, Johanna Kwan. Her email address is there, or our past president, Madeline Morrow. They're both happy to hear from you. We'd all be thrilled to have some of you join us. And now I'm going to explain how things are going to work tonight. If you have any questions for Dee and Ken, we have a lot of people here, so we don't want people interrupting them. But please go ahead and type your questions into the chat, whether you're on YouTube or on Zoom, just type them into the chat. We have folks monitoring, and they will read the questions after Dee and Ken are done with their presentation. And I believe we are ready for you now, Dee and Ken. Go ahead and take over.
Good evening. Welcome to our program.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
We are going to talk about our trip. We did a 6.5 months trip around the world, sort of, but our main focus is in
India.
India, in the Himalaya, as it's pronounced. I will also talk about, our main focus is mainly the Himalaya flora and some geology. And in order for us, I'm very nervous. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. So tonight's presentation will mainly focus on the flora of the Western Himalaya. We will highlight some of our trips pre-Himalaya, namely Hong Kong, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, and a little bit of Europe, because mainly it's the European part is a touristy kind of trip. So
let me mention that this was conceived to continue into the Himalaya on a field trip that Arvind and Ashok led, Coyote Valley Preserve, about 9 months before we actually took off. And with them talking and us talking, it developed into a wonderful trip.
So let me just want to thank you, two very special people who helped us with the trip. Ivy Chow in Hong Kong, she let us stay at her place, and Sally Balmain, my former employer from Hong Kong, had taken us around Indonesia for 27 days, and she gave us the all stops island hopping tour. Anyway, so where does our trip begin? So Sally had invited us to go to Bali for a month, and in order to go to Bali, we had to land in Hong Kong. So there's Bali, and then we had to arrive in Hong Kong to take a plane to get to Bali. And then we talked to Arvind about our trip, and India and the Himalaya came up. And hence we then added our trip to the Himalayas and India area. And then of course my sister is out in the UK and Europe, so we decided to go to Europe as well. So the trip ultimately ended like this. Crazy. A lot of travel, a lot of planes and trains.
After 6.5 months.
So first we arrive in Hong Kong. This is the Victoria Harbor with a touristy, old-fashioned fishing junk with the modern ferry that crosses the harbor.
Yeah.
So this is the rain. We arrived during the rain season, unfortunately, because of the timing of where we wanted, when we needed to be in Bali. So after heavy torrential rains, the place where we stayed at, Tai Tam, this is what it looks like after rain, every time it rained. And then usually the the Taitan Bay where we stayed at usually clears out, and the scenery is beautiful.
And I might mention, this is on the eastern side of Hong Kong Island, the side that faces North America.
So here we have some tourist scenes. So we did do around the island tour on the tram, and on doing the tour on the tram, we actually met somebody in Santa Clara Valley because she saw Ken with our
bag.
our Santa Clara Valley chapter tote bag that you see hanging on his neck here in that picture.
And where's that picture taken?
Right, the picture was taken at my childhood home back in Hong Kong, and that is up in the Peak area, which, as you can see, it's very cloudy a lot of the time. So as you can see, Ken is promoting CNPS around the world. He wears his T-shirt almost religiously. And then here is Ivy, and Ivy has a restaurant and a farm that she grows her food to serve at the restaurant. So this is a little bit of thank you for her.
Mostly organic.
Yeah, mostly organic, and she does vegan and only vegan. And this is her home out in the New Territories, where she also has a farm. And she hosts these dining events for her favorite clients.
Yeah, and I might mention her restaurant's on Hollywood Road, and it too was named after a holly, but not the genus Prunus like our Hollywood, but the genus Ilex, the true hollies.
And then we encounter our first camellia in Asia, and this is a camellia tree which gets up to about 15 feet tall. If you notice the bark, it almost looks like a manzanita or arbutus bark. It's coppery color, smooth and cool, just like the Arctostaphylos and the arbutus, not arbutus.
Well,
arbutus, yes.
Yeah, madrone.
Madrone.
But of course, it's a different family.
Right. Yes. Yes. Anyway, it's in the tea family, and it's considered rare and endangered in the wild. And this tree is actually planted throughout it's very popular landscape tree in Asia. Here we go up to the peak, the Victoria Peak. You can actually look around most of Hong Kong down on the harbor side. And we were hoping to see the harbor, but unfortunately that day was very foggy and we got sucked in. And here along the walk here, this is called Lugar Road. It's a loop around the Victoria Peak, and there's many interesting plants, and also the government has put in interpretive signs throughout the trail here, and some common species, some common genuses here is the Philippine, it's Adiatum philippines, and that looks like our maidenhair fern. And we have a Uvaria, which is, I've never seen this before, but it is cool plants, new discovery in my home country. I've never, a lot of stuff is a lot of new discovery.
And I just might mention the genus Camellia. There's 7 species in Hong Kong, and it's the type locality for several, including Camellia hongkongensis. And of course, Dee's going to elaborate on the British, of course, are great botanists, and it was often the type locality for other plants too, right. Including Asarum hongkongensis.
Right. And Hong Kong actually has 6 Aristolochias. 6 species of the Aristolochiaceae family, which Asarum hongkongensis is one of them. And then there are 5 Aristolochias that is native to Hong Kong, which is very surprising. I was shocked. And here is Pavetta hongkongensis, one of the species that are named after Hong Kong, and there are 16 Hong Kong named species. Rhododendron has one, Camellia impatiens, Spiranthes, Asarum, And there's also a cornice type tree named after Hong Kong. And there are many other species as well. Then we travel around the island. We island hop, and we visited an old Chung Chau Island, which I had lived for quite a few years with Derek and Jason, my son's family. And this is the blue skink. And of the years I've lived on Chung Chau, I've not ever seen these.
Then she had the luck this time to photograph it
Right.
really well.
I guess coming back home with new pairs of eyes, seeing nature in a new way. So I want to highlight a bit of Hong Kong geology, because our trip really is also encompasses some of the geology we have encountered. And surprisingly, I have discovered that Hong Kong was a volcanic place. Hong Kong, New Territories, that whole area. The geology comprises of 50% volcanic rock and 35% granitic rock and 15% sedimentary rock of various types. Also, there are metamorphic rocks as well as superficial deposits. And here's the chart that kind of gives you a visual look at what Hong Kong looks geologically. And
show them where the city's located.
Yeah, hold on. Yes. So in the square here is we're going to look at a geology, the Hong Kong Geopark. It is a unique place in Hong Kong where it has columns, volcanic columns, hexagonal columns. And also Hong Kong has over 100 ancient faults. And then as you see the blinking there, that's one of the faults we're going to look at. And this is the High Island Reservoir that we visited. That's where the geopark is. And that is where the fault leads up to the place we're going to go see. So this is the Hong Kong UNESCO Global Geopark, which is the east dam of the High Island Reservoir. And would you like to highlight?
Well, Mike mentioned the reason a lot of these hexagonal columns were exposed is under the British, they created a reservoir, shut off the sea with this holding dam, and created a second dam to capture fresh water. Being Hong Kong's an island and a limited territory, fresh water was a premium. And with that, they actually shut off the sea and any further process of erosion.
So why the British had built this dam, I finally figured out, read somewhere that during the 1967 riot, mainland China had shut the water off to Hong Kong. They were gonna
needed some local sources.
Yeah. So we needed local sources, and we built a couple of reservoirs to sustain ourselves. And here is the Broken Edge Island. It's a sea stack. It somewhere down the millions of years ago, it cracked and fell partially into the sea. And here is the hexagonal basalt columnar rock formation. It was formed over 140 million years ago, and there was a super volcano that they had realized after some engineers had re-examined some of the rock formations around Hong Kong.
Notice behind, you can see the structure of the dam that creates the reservoir, exposing these columns.
And then we finally also went to the Hong Kong wetland, and this is a 61-hectare wetland ecosystem located in northern New Territories, which is adjacent to Deep Bay, or China would call it the Shenzhen Bay. So it's across from China, very close. And to get these pictures, we waited 2 hours for this female pied kingfisher to come have her afternoon snack. And then here she is eating and gobbling all up. All right, then we move on to Indonesia. We were there for 27 days, and Sally had taken us around Bali first to do some tour, to look at some of the villages, visited some villages and temples.
Rice fields.
And rice fields. And here we go on the island hopping tour.
To Java.
To Java, went to Yogyakarta. We flew there, and then we drove to Central Java, and then to Jakarta to fly to Central Kalimantan, which is also Central Borneo, to see the orangutans.
Yeah, Kalimantan, the Indonesian state on Borneo. It's split between two countries, including Malaysia.
Then from Jakarta, we flew to Makassar, which is South Sulawesi, excuse me. And we then drove up, sorry. Oops. And then we drove, from Makassar, we drove up the island midway to, excuse me. Oh, God.
To Taraja.
Taraja. And then we toured Taraja, which is a funeral culture. And I'll be showing you some pictures.
Yeah, very unique culture.
Yes. And then we went up to North Sulawesi to Manado and Bintan and Mahasa. And then from there, we went to Ternate, which is the northern Maluku Islands. That's where the Spice Island area are. And then from there, we flew back to Jakarta and back to Bali. Whirlwind, wow. So on the Bali side, we had done a sunrise tour to Mount Batur. It was a 700-meter climb. We had to hike it up in 2 hours before the sun came up. By the time I got maybe 2/3 the way, I gave up and I hired a taxi.
Which was a motorbike.
Yeah, motorcycle. Hitched a motorcycle ride, paid some money and got myself almost to the top, and I had to hike some more up on the last part of it. And here we visited Jatilui Rice Terrace. It's nominated for a UNESCO heritage site. So these rice terraces, it belongs to the village of Jatilui, and they use the old Balinese subak system. It's an irrigation system that does they build irrigation canals, like from the bottom here, the second picture here, and this is a communal type of agriculture where the whole village, everybody owns different pieces of land, but they share in the resources of the water and harvesting and management of the crops. You know, timing who gets water first, who plants first, so that everybody gets their crop in and are able to make their living. So here are some of the sceneries. These are the rice stacks of the drying out the rice, the canals. And there was a Sambucus javanica, which is the Chinese elder. And I thought it looked so familiar. I was admiring it. And then in order for them to have a kind of closed loop system for their agriculture, they burned the straws to use as a fertilizer for the soil. And here, this is the storage. Because it rains often, they need to shelter the rice from the rain. And this is a 9th century Balinese system. Here we then had visited another sunrise at Borobudur Temple. It's a 9th century Mahayana Buddhist temple. And when we got up there and the sun came up, it was just absolutely gorgeous. It was beautiful. Here in Central Java, this is the car trip that we went on to Central Java to drive to Jakarta to get onto Borneo. So this is one of the mountain. This is Mount Merapi, which means fire mountain. And last year in 2019, it erupted and it continues to be active, had killed 300 people. So this, we arrive at Kalimantan, central Kalimantan, which is central Borneo. And we had a gorgeous 3-night river tour to see the orangutan. Here I taught the captain of the boat on the last day sort of admire and appreciate the butterflies. So I had him learn, I taught him how to get the butterfly on his sweaty skin, because what the butterflies are looking for is your sweat.
Yeah, minerals.
Minerals. And here on the second picture, here's me, that's Sally and Ken. We're on the boat to visit villages and seeing backwaters. And our daily meals are delicious. And we also had a birthday boy on the boat.
Pretty special birthday.
So here, some of the sceneries are beautiful. I mean, they're like these quiet waters, and but unfortunately, as we move through the river, there are many areas where they're mining gold through dredging in the water. So it pollutes the air, pollutes the water with their diesel engine, and also noise pollution. So that was very sad.
Yeah, and I might also mention the trees we see. Borneo is the world's center with over 80 species of the genus Dipterocarpus, Dipterocarpus acacia. And this is a tree species, of course, with drip tips that is so prominent in Southeast Asia, and it extends into Thailand, probably also the subtropical portion of India.
Here we have 2 sets of photos. The ones on the top are the ones we visited a village that was promoting eco coffee, where he had a special mix with herbs and spices for his coffee. We bought quite a few bags. And we got blessed in being kings and queens for the day. And then on another day, we had visited a sort of after school activity project. It's an environmental education project for local kids that can come in and learn about how to protect their environment and their ecology and how to live sustainably. And they did put on a show for us. Very nice. And here we have the highlight of the trip in in Borneo was the orangutans. They're just so gentle giants, and it's very sad that the pet trade, that in order to get the baby orangutan, that they have to kill the mother in order to get the baby. So these are rescues, and when they're rescued, they are brought into a facility where they're, taken care of health-wise, and then they go to school. They learn how to be orangutans. And then eventually when they reach a certain age and they're able to probably pass some of the tests on survival skills, that then they graduate onto the Orangutan University, which is out on the river in certain sections that's marked. And this is one of the older orangutans. I'm not sure what sex it is, but it's not the mature one where the male would have like a plate with the fleshy sort of quote unquote gills around the face, but they're beautiful animals. Then we move on to South Sulawesi. We fly in there to Makassar, and this is Toraja. And again, we have lots of rice paddy fields to see and drive through. And then we have local villagers who harvest coffee. And I think they mainly do they mainly grow a Robusta and Arabica.
Well, those are the two main varieties, and Robusta can tolerate higher elevations.
Right. And here we have the villagers harvesting and cleaning out the rice, the water buffalo, and then we have here the giant bamboo forest, which they just opened that day. It was the opening ceremony for that park, and actually Australia helped fund some of the projects, and we had a ceremony.
And preservation.
Somebody needs to mute.
So the giant bamboo could reach up to 70 feet in height.
Right, and then we have here the funerary culture of Taraja, and here's a symbolic statue of the sacred animal that they use for sacrificing. So it's a culture where they celebrate death, and they also by having elaborate, it's more, the richer you are, the more money you have a more elaborate ceremony where you have lots of animals, pigs, and these cattle that are brought in for sacrificing and for giving out to your funeral guests. So this cow here, or no, this buffalo here is an albino buffalo, which has some patches, but this animal is prized dearly for to have one of these in the funeral. It's prestigious, as they would say. And then down in the lower right corner here is a traditional home. These are preserved, and they show these multiple water buffalo horns, and they hang these after the ceremony, the funeral ceremony, to show how wealthy and how rich they are, because they can afford all these buffalo horns that they had to sacrifice the buffalo. Anyways. And in this center picture, they actually bury, intern their dead relatives into these caves. And they actually pre-dig this like many years before the person even dies, because it's really hard rock, and takes many years for them to dig it out. Then we have some Taraja insects, which I found while we were having lunch and while we're touring. This is the Atlas beetle. It's like 4 inches in length, and makes these hissing sound. It's kind of creepy. And then we have a white cheat carpenter bee. The insects are quite extraordinary, quite huge. I mean, they're much bigger than the ones we have here. And this bee here is probably about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And some strange moth. And here, there's a moth here that is the dead head moth, excuse me. It's got a skeleton here. And that's and some interesting moths. Then we go off to North Sulawesi, and the towns we went to was Manado, Minahasa, and Bitong. And this is one of the scenery that we saw, sunsets at Manado. And in Minahasa, we went to a volcanic lake. The water's really hot. They don't recommend you touching it or swim in it. So you could actually get yourself boiled.
And there was sulfur vents in addition.
Right. Here, this is one of the nature preserve, Tankoko Nature Preserve in Bitong. And the highlight was seeing the tarsiers. And there were 3 of them in this tree cavity. They're really cute. They're like maybe 6 inches. And then on the left here, if you notice, this huge leaf is actually the leaf of the teak tree. And that's my foot. It's about 8 inches long. So that's about 16 inches in width, and it could be like 20 inches in length. So they use these leaves as a roofing for their huts. Here on the left is a common flying lizard, showing some of its color, the flaps, and actually they have little flaps here on the side. And here on the lower right here is us, Sally, me, and Ken, taking a tourist picture amongst the buttresses, the tree root buttresses. And we have a snake here. It's hard to see. It was getting dark and it's very wooded, so it was very hard to take good
Yeah,
pictures.
about a 7-foot long snake.
It gets bigger every time.
Well, it was large.
Anyway, so this statue is of Alfred Russel Wallace, and he is one of he's the person who discovered that there's a line between Asia and Australia. And Ken, would you like to highlight on that?
Well, there's Borneo and Sulawesi is part of the Banda Shelf of Southeast Asia. And during the ice ages, land bridges would have connected, and the fauna of those islands is related to Asia. But there's a deep channel on the far side of Sulawesi that separates New Guinea and the Australian landmass. And now that channel, which was never had a land bridge, we call the Wallace Line. And Wallace, of course, independently, created the theory of evolution, and of course, eventually collaborated with Darwin. But it is Darwin who actually published, so he gets a lot of the credit. But Wallace was a great naturalist and highly revered in Indonesia.
And then we move on to the North Maluku Islands, which is the Spice Islands. And we landed in Ternate and Teodor. These both islands do have the nutmeg and the mace. So the nutmeg includes the mace, which is the red part, which is the aril of part of the seed. So you have a hard husk, and then the nutmeg is wrapped in the aril, which when you take that off, it's called mace for the spice. And then here's the seed with another husk. And here, this is a seed that's shelled, and that's the one we used for our cooking or as a spice. And
the spice nutmeg.
The spice nutmeg, thank you. And interestingly, what the villagers do is they want to induce the plant to produce more fruit. So what they do is stab it. They stab the tree. Look at these. These are all the markings to stress the tree out. So it makes it produce even more fruit. On the right here with all the red mace, this is, they dry on the street. It's all home cottage industry here. And here are the unhulled nutmegs. And this is in the workshop that's hand shelled, and this is how the workshop looks like. And then in another location, so there, each place does certain things. So this little house just does the shelling, and then this little house would just do the sorting. So everybody seems to be happy and they're employed. So it's good. It's very interesting. And then on those two same islands, Ternate and Teodor Island, this is the clove, Syzygium aromatica. So here's the flower, and the clove is actually harvested before the flower opens because they want the bud and not the flower. That's what makes the spice. And here it's on the side of the road drying, and there's actually a motorcycle here. And then here's Ken harvesting, helping out with the harvest, and it's hand harvested. The woman is underneath the tree with their children, while the men are up in the tree shaking and dislodging the fruit I mean, that's not the fruit, the
The buds.
flowers, the buds, and then the women, children are on the ground picking them up. And they do it at a very leisurely, there's no rush in harvesting. They just sit there and pick at it. And, and then here, when it's dried, it turns black, and then it's sorted, it's graded, and then it gets shipped off. And another island we went to, it's called Maitara. And excuse me.
Was south of Teodora.
Right. So it's south of it's actually in between Ternate and it's a little small island between
to the west. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway. Here's some interesting insects and flower. This is the Philippine ground orchid we found growing on the hillside, and that was very cool. And then we came across a spider. It's like more than 6 to 8 inches in size, and it was just walking around, and it's a crab spider, it's called, and this is a female, I believe, because it has the pedipalps is not club shaped, where the male pedipalp is club shaped, like a club, like a little ball. And then some unknown weevil here, and thanks to Sally, we're at the end of our Bali trip. She had helped. She had hosted a Balinese wedding ceremony for us to renew our vows. After how many years? 2 years.
Well, 3.
3 years.
But she was unable to attend the wedding. I remember.
Yes, because unfortunately, her husband Ken was very ill and was not able to fly over here. And anyways, she had invited a bunch of some of her friends, and we celebrated our wedding in Balinese style, and it was just fabulous. We had fabulous food. This is Putu, who is her Sally's cook, and she does amazing recipes, and she cooks absolute fantastic food. Thank you, Sally. And Putu, and Made is the male.
He does all the handiwork,
yes,
and the driving.
Yes, right. He's
and they're Balinese.
Balinese. And that's their lovely family. And then we go off to Singapore, and this is Garden by the Bay. It looks like it's fully enclosed, air conditioned, with all these plants. This is their prize show. It's a rainforest with waterfalls. And then we come across this, the Californian garden. We were appalled. We were like in a tizzy trying to figure out, what is this? So I actually wrote to them a few weeks ago, and I got a reply that they're going to look into this and look into our suggestions of looking into the actual California flora to put on a better display than these Mediterranean type garden plants.
Yeah, the European olive is behind the sign, and in the foreground is Dusty Miller, also from Europe.
So, and this is what they're exhibiting, our habitat destruction. If you can later on replay this and expand on the panel to read what they're talking about how we are destructive to our environment, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, this is right on the waterfront in Singapore.
All right. And then we went to the Botanical Garden, Singapore Botanical Garden. And this carpenter bee, I tell you, it's like 2 inches long. And this flower is like 6 inches wide. And it's buzz pollinating. And here I am with my animal critter photography.
He's grabbing earthworms.
And this amazing banana tree is called Thousand Fingers. And it's more than 5 feet, or I'm just below 5 feet. So this is about 5 feet long, and it's the world's longest inflorescent. Then we did take the train from Singapore to Penang, Malaysia, but we're gonna skip showing some of that, but move on to Thailand, because Thailand, we were there for a month, and there was a lot more interesting things. And here we're at the eastern Thailand, which we're along the border. This is the Mekong River, and across from the river is Laos. And this is the sort of hotel the resort we're staying at. And in Asia, every day there's possible rain, and there's the thunder shower coming in. And then, okay, we walked along the village, walked through the village, and I come across this snake in somebody's garden. And I look at it, it looked back at me. And this species of snake, actually the iris is round. It's not the slit, the iris is not like a slit, but it's circular. So this makes it a different type of snake.
And of course, venomous.
It's also venomous, yeah. I made sure I said I had a long lens. This is more than 5 feet away. So
yeah, lucky you.
Yeah. Then we move on to, in this area, this is called Konchem. Konchem. This is, the place is called Pha Tem National Park. And this is a display they have. This is what they call the Sao Chai Liang rock pillars, and they commonly call it the mushroom rocks because of these hard rocks that didn't get eroded, but they're stacked on top of sandstone layer, and the sandstone eroded with the heavy monsoon rains they get.
And I might mention, this is one of Thailand's national parks. 13% of the landmass of Thailand is actually national park. And this particular one was recommended for us to visit by Phil Darlington, a CNPS member.
And here at the Pha Tem National Park, we are standing on top of a cliff, a sandstone cliff, and looking towards Laos again. And that is the Mekong River. And below, this is the cliff, the platform, the sandstone block. And below the block is these layers of sedimentary rocks. And then there's prehistoric cliff paintings.
Petroglyphs.
And then there's also a cascade. They call this the Sao Saiwan cascade. It's like a lens, a circular hole in the rock that makes a waterfall. And next to it, this blotch is actually this hanging honeycomb. Now this honeycomb is from the giant honeybee of Asia. And this honeycomb, I calculated, is about 5 feet in length. And there's multiple layers within the beehive. So the bees I kind of calculate to be about 1 inch long. That's one big honeybee. And then some of the local flora, they have Utricularia, Delphinioides, which I just named it. Delphinium bladderwort is what kind of plant?
Well, it's carnivorous.
Carnivorous plant.
And of course, in North America, we also have bladderworts, mainly with yellow flowers.
And of course, insects interest me. And these are giant millipedes. These are about 8 to 9 inches long and about 1 inch thick. Now, half an inch thick, excuse me. Don't I wish? And they're very slow, but if you agitate them, they can shoot some nasty acid in your face. This is another species. It's smaller. It's the Thai rainbow millipede. And I look in the web and I find that a lot of European people love this and they actually breed it as pets. It's a big industry in Europe. And then here we have some butterflies. This is called the green dragon tail. And they flutter real fast. And when I took some videos, I had to slow it down much more in order to actually see the butterflies. Because when you're actually there, you just see these black dots flying around.
A blur.
A blur, not even a blur. So, and these butterflies about maybe 3 inches in length. They're pretty big, but the wings are pretty short. They're pretty interesting. All right, so I have to change my panel. Let's see. Oh, how do I do this? Oh.
So I just might mention,
She,
what's this?
oh, she.
Oh.
Oh, so I think.
Oh, go ahead, Dee.
So I think I need to be still on the screen in order to change.
All right, go ahead and take it back then. Sorry about that.
Yeah, all right. It's okay. Yeah, glitches. Play. So now we go to the other part. Second part is our trip to the Western Himalaya. Namely, we go to Munsyari. And here we have the CNPS team field trip. We have the CNPS field trip going to India. So we met in New Delhi in a hotel. And then before we left for the Himalayas, we actually bulked up on the very delicious buffet. And then here we have the Himalaya, the map of India. And this is to show the Indian monsoon comes from the west, southwest of the Arabian Sea and southern India in the Lakshadweep Sea, which is down here, down below on the southern tip. There's a weather system of air currents that comes off the Arabian Sea that goes across the Decca Plateau and then up to the Bay of Bengal and up through this area. So I'll show you with an arrow. And that's where the wind, that's the air current. And then the monsoon comes up through here and the wind picks up some of the moisture. And this area becomes the wettest part of India. And as the wind pulls the air, the moisture through this, through the Himalaya, it gets drier and dry until when it reaches that area, there's no more moistures to be dropped.
Or very little.
Very little, excuse me. So here is actually a radar, from my radar app. It's a snapshot from my phone, and this is what the air current looks like. This was taken September 21st, so it's in full force, this band of air current. And you see how it siphons through this, siphons through Bangladesh, and there's all the moisture here. And as it goes through Nepal and the Himalayas here, it gets more drier and the wind doesn't seem to be up there as much. So here, for this trip, from New Delhi, we took the train from Kathgodam. And that is at the elevation. I'm just going to do feet for now. So, but I've got the conversion of the metric conversion here next to it. So it's 709 feet at the train station. And then we go, this is on the train. This is not quite the train track, but it wouldn't pull up the train on the map. So I just did the car. So this is.
So what are we crossing?
Crossing?
Yeah, the plain of the Ganges or the Ganga.
Oh, okay. Would you like to?
Well, go ahead,
Well,
continue.
So here in Kathgodam railway station is at 2,051 feet. And then that same day we travel up 7,600 feet in elevation to get to our first overnight resort stay. And then the next day we had a morning hike at Binsar. And then in the afternoon, we took off to go to Misty Mountain, which is at 7,000 feet. It goes down a little bit. And then we overnight in Misty Mountain. And then we went on to Munsyari, which is our destination. It's at 7,218 feet. So the total elevation difference is here. The elevation change was 6,500 feet from New Delhi to Munsyari.
Not too extraordinary, because you can do that in the Sierra.
Oh, okay. So here is some pictures from at the railway station in New Delhi, and then we arrive at Cathgodam. And here are some yumptious food waiting for us in Cathgodam. We went to a local cafe, and here are some of the scenery looking through the, as we climb up in elevation. We drive through rivers, drive over rivers, or drive across it with bridges. And this is the Bertie Falls, one of the local attractions before we hit Munsyari. And these are some of the fields that we see along the way. Oh, and I forgot. So this is the local shepherd breed of dogs that used to herd cattle, or herd cattle, herd sheep. Oops, sorry. And here are some on our first night at Binsar Forest Retreat at elevation 7,600 feet. We found some interesting mushroom. This is called the indigo milk cap. It's blue in color. The gills are blue, blue dots on a kind of cream white mushroom, and some bizarre looking flies. But apparently this is, they are actually all around the world. They get all over the place. And if you look at the flower here, it's the Achillea millefolium, or yarrow. So that was very nice. And that grows up most places. Is it circumpolar or yeah,
worldwide, really, in the Northern Hemisphere.
Right. And this is a cool little plant. This is in the ginger family. Roscoe purpurea is the name. And we have some interesting insects. I still haven't found the name for this one yet. And then this is our team with the homestay. I don't have the host. Yeah, the host. And this is next to me is Theo, our guide for this trip. And okay.
And on our morning walk, we saw a tree-like plant actually up to 60 feet. And both Joe Cernac and I could have considered it a madrone looking at the bark. And it turned out to be Rhododendron arboreum, a tree-like rhododendron. And that was our first sighting at Binsar Forest Retreat.
Okay, so our next stop is at Misty Mountain on day 2. We start seeing more local plants, and this is a Pearly Everlast, which it's in the Anaphylis genus. And we have the local villagers building stone wall to to secure a local pond. And then we have this is my glasses, Strobilanthus tomatosa, which is in the Acanthaceae family. So I'll be using some scientific names because some of them don't have common names, and I haven't been able to find any local names also. And down here below, we have Spiranthes, sinensis in the orchid family. And we have a spiderwort plant, which is Cyanotosis vega. And there's oak galls. On a local oak, it is the Leucocorchis leucotrichophora. And we have a local, I'd say, kind of elderly woman where she's harvesting grasses, fodder as they call it, for her cattle to eat. So every day the women go out into the mountains to harvest these massive bundles of grasses for their animals to eat. And we have here on the last picture here is Desmondium elegans, which is a rare plant. And also the Spiranthes is a rare plant. Oops. So here, this is our first visual introduction to the Himalaya. And we woke up at 6:30 in the morning, saw this view, gorgeous view, and we had breakfast. We had our tea out by a picnic table, and then within an hour, the scenery is gone.
And Misty Mountain.
Right, as it's so named. So this, we then arrive at Munsyari the next day, and we see, this is the view we get in our homestay. I looked, this is from the balcony, and this is what we see every morning. If the clouds don't come in. And this is a picture Joe Cernac took. And Ken, would you like to?
Yeah, this is representative of the suture zone between the Lesser Himalaya and the Greater Himalaya. But I'm going to back up a little bit. India subcontinent split off from the Great Southern landmass Gondwana about 130 million years ago and made a beeline and finally reached Asia in the vicinity of Tibet at 50 million years ago. And there's a suture in southern Tibet, the Indus suture, that is where the Indian subcontinent made the initial contact. It's also interesting that suture in south central Tibet is the headwaters for two major river systems that go into different directions and that actually define the Himalaya mountains. The one that flows to the west-northwest is the Indus River, which eventually, in a fault zone between the Karakoram with K2, tumbles to the Pakistani plains to reach the Arabian Sea. The other great system is the Yarloon, which eventually in India is named the Brahmaputra, that tumbles to the plains of Bangladesh to be joined by the Ganges, and to enter the Bay of Bengal through the Delta system. The Himalaya runs from the Brahmaputra for 2,000 kilometers, first more or less east-west trend, then arcing in the central Himalaya to the northwest to be basically cut off by the gorge of the Indus River. So for 2,000 kilometers, 1,200 miles, it's one of the greatest ranges on Earth, with over, I believe, with the Karakoram, all the summits over 8,000 meters, 26,000 feet, something like 14, including the world's highest, Everest. at something like 8,800 meters or 29,035 feet. So this suture, or Indus suture, is in Tibet. And then we have the crystallines, mostly gneiss and schist of the greater Himalaya. That's where the great summits are. And in Munsyari, we're in the contact between the greater. So we were only briefly in our treks in the greater Himalaya, but mostly in the lesser, which extends to the south to the Sayawik Hills. And of course, when departs from the train, I'm just going to mention, if you ever been to Rancho Santa Ana in Claremont and seen the San Gabriel Mountains rising above Claremont, that's how the Himalayan foothills appeared, just coming out of the plain, you know, the breadbasket of India, and with a river and so much sediment. You know, it's just a very dynamic landscape. And what we're looking here, the whitest rock, is talc. So very interesting. And that overview, this suture is 20 million years old. So the Lesser Himalaya is a much younger range and is mostly not hard grade metamorphic rocks, but meta sediments, limestone.
So, excuse me.
Marble.
So this is a painting done by our host's husband. It's the local birds of the Himalayas, and it's all hand painted, and even the writing is all handwritten. So I put this slide up so that you can look back later and expand and look at the names of the birds and admire the artistic work. So here we have some scenes about some of the local women. They are absolutely amazing people. They're very strong, they're resilient, they take no bullshit from, excuse my language, they don't take crap from anybody. Ken is going to highlight on the Deodora that I'm sitting under.
Yes, we were all in different homestays. We were at the lowest level. Perhaps Joe Cernac and also Arvind and Ashok had better views. But to go up and join Theo, we would often meet under this deodar cedar. And I might mention this region is part of the Western Himalayan floristic zone. And the deodar cedar, which of course is widely used in the Bay Area, is a member of the pine family, of course. It is endemic to the West Himalayan floristic province. And of course, there's other endemics, but the main point, the Western Himalaya floristic province affinities are more with Afghanistan, the Karakoram range. And of course, we're speaking above 1,000 meters, 3,300 feet. The Eastern Himalaya floristic zone, which is about, one reaches midway through Nepal, which receives heavier rainfall, more equitable temperatures. Its affinities are with China, particularly Yunnan. And it is the region that has the greatest diversity of rhododendron species. The Western Himalaya is more or less impoverished. We saw 3, and the region probably has 7 that I've seen listed.
So here on the next panel is the local cat, which has one of our guides had pointed me out, sort of indicating that it could be one of the wild cats, but I'm not sure. It looks pretty. It looks very nice. Almost, it doesn't look like a house cat quite to me. But anyways, some nice scenery, the sunset out by where we're staying. This is the homestay, very comfortable. And we actually eat with
the family.
With the family, and we eat in their kitchen. And it's just humbling to experience such a thing to eat with our host. We have very good conversation. I had taught her that she had grown nasturtium as a just a plant for flowers, and I taught her that it could be eaten. So we had that every day.
Yeah,
as
in
part of our
salads.
salads. And this is our first viewing of the impatiens. This is which is it's called scabrita. This is the impatient scabrita. It's about almost an inch in length. Solid yellow, very pretty. And then Joe Cernac, we went to get some supplies, and after we got some supplies, Joe
Did an additional walk.
disappeared and went to the local village. So here, we've got some statistics here about the climate, the major vegetation, and Ken, you want to highlight on that?
Yeah, looking at the major vegetation types, it reflects starting at the base of the Himalaya, and the subtropical needle leaf forests are basically from the base to about 1,000 meters, a little over 3,000 feet. In the chair pine, Pinus rockbergii, is very abundant. It's the first pine we saw. It's utilized, of course, for firewood and rough building material, but they're doing a lot of reforestation. So a lot of the forests are that are being reforested look like plantations, actually. But if you do see natural cliffs, you do see stands that haven't been harvested. And then as one ascends into the lesser Himalaya, we see the montane broadleaf forests, both deciduous and evergreen. For example, in Binsar, this would be one of the communities, and that's where we saw the 60-foot evergreen Rhododendron arboreum. There's also several oak species. And then even higher up, as we approach Munsyari, or not Munsyari, we get into the subalpine coniferous forest with such species as the deodar cedar, the West Himalayan spruce. In fact, there's a second spruce that overlaps. Its main range is further east, the East Himalayan spruce. And I do have the scientific names for them. We also encounter, as we ascend the ridge, the birch rhododendron forest. Now, the birch species is Betula utilis, and as we're approaching timberline, it's actually a quite stunted birch, no more than 5 to 10 meters high. With it, we saw members of the genus Sorbus. We also saw Aesculus indica, the Himalayan. In fact, actually, there's close-ups of many of these. So let me continue. At tree line, the stunted Rhododendron campanulatum forest. That's the last woody vegetation. It forms more of a Krummholz, a timberline community. And I might mention, when I went to Kew Botanic Gardens in London, there I saw a sign, Rhododendron campanulatum in London, of course, as part of Kew Gardens display. Then finally, at 12,300 feet, we found native Danthonia meadows above any woody vegetation, and that's basically the highest we attained on this trip. So I'm going to turn it over to Dee now.
And then if you look up here, we've got the climate information. When it is summer, the monsoon season is June to September. We actually was there
at the tail end,
at the tail end, hoping it would finish early, but we got caught in the monsoon rain. And when we were up in the mountains, I mean, it rained for days and days and days until.
Excuse me, Dee, can you come closer or speak up? A number of people are having trouble hearing. Sorry.
All right, it's okay. Thank you. I thought we were shouting. And so anyway, it rained for many days when we were trekking up there. And the last day that we were there leaving, the sun came out. Anyway. So here, we have our first trek. It's to acclimate us for the second trip. The start of the elevation is at 99,23 feet. And this is the Tamri Kun. Kun, K-U-N, means pond. And it's a popular nature trail by the for the local people. And this is, and it's quite a short height for them. We camp at 9,200 feet and we stay there for 2 nights. And the trail, we go in, oops. This is the map, so the image of where we start hike here and we go out and come back. And when we, this is where we camped out here. And this is a very short introduction. It's 1.4 miles.
Really? I never did that.
It's not very long. So it's 2.8 in and out. But it was nice. It's a nice introduction because it's very wet, very slippery, and a lot of leeches and creepy crawlies. And here is the Tamri Kun, the actual Tamri itself, and you've got the local cattle here that hang out, and this is the watering hole, and they graze throughout this area. And here is our campsite. The top picture is our campsite. And then we have local visitor during some of the mornings is they're looking for salt. They know the humans carry salt with them when they're camping. And they came in the middle of the night, and I thought it was actually mountain lions or something like that. But anyway, the next morning we had a whole herd roaming around our campsite. We have our here on the right here is our kitchen tent. This is our cook, and he makes everything from scratch, chapatis, tea, and the daily meal. And this is we're having our meal here. There's Ken, Arvind, Ashok, Joe Cernac, the cook, and this is Teo. And then this is outside of the kitchen tent, and the crew stay here. And we were actually above this area, going up that way. And we're looking up and kind of wondering, what is this thing we're looking at? And we have, it's a rhododendron arboreum, the rhododendron tree. And it's in the heather family, Ericaceae family. And we're just looking at it, and all the trunk is like, I don't know, 20 something inches in diameter or more. And we're looking on the other side, and this is what we're seeing. It's a half ripped up tree, and you can see the inside of the trunk, and there's moss growing and there's ferns growing in it, and it's still alive. We were just so amazed. And then here we have 4 panels. Here we're looking at a baneberry, Himalayan baneberry. That's in circle, that little red dot. And here is Ashok. He's talking about the medicinal use of the Taxus walliciana, the Himalayan yew. And then we have these people running up in the hills, in the mountains, carrying these boards of trees, and they're actually local illegal loggers, because they're they have quotas in the local village forest, and if it's not their turn to harvest, they can't build their home, so they go out into the national forest, the other forest, and illegal log poach trees. And we have here on the left, on the right is our crew members. They're very studious. You notice they have their book here, and then they have notebooks and pencils to take notes while they're hiking. Pretty amazing. Then we have the Aesculus indica, as Ken mentioned earlier. And it's very huge. It's more than what, 50, 80 feet tall, maybe, probably.
Yeah, and it, of course, is endemic to the West Himalayan floristic province. But in general shape, and of course, it's very lush compared. This is September and in full leaf compared to our Aesculus.
Oh, I think they're evergreen.
Well, maybe they're evergreen. That's we weren't there long enough to see the full seasonal effect. But the Acer acuminatum, and if Dee can get back to it, in front of Joe, you can see the long acuminate tip, sometimes known also as a drip tip, that allows water to, the incessant monsoon rainfall. In addition, of course, we see the very tightly closed samaras. Our big leaf maple, the angle of the spread of the samaras is quite a bit greater.
Here we have some local wildflowers in the aster family. This is the Nepal miriaticus. It's sort of, has no rays, it's rayless, and there's a parasitic fly here. And it's a mating pair, and they actually lay eggs in the head and produce galls for the larvae to live in. And then we have an interesting aster family. The genus is Sauceria. I haven't figured out which species this is yet. And then we have Senecio latus, the cheerful Senecio. And this is all over the hillside. I mean, it's growing all over the place. Some more aster family. This is the pearly everlast that we saw earlier in the picture. And this is Tripla nervus and tri means three, and actually it's the three veins here, the three main veins. And we have here the Erigeron multiradiatus, the Himalaya fleabane, and it looks very similar to some of our fleabanes in California. And one of my favorite genuses is the Cirsium. This is Cirsium falconeri, falconer's thistle. And this is the flower head, inflorescent. And it's, Arvind seems to get tangled in these quite often. He keeps complaining thorny things. And then they're very useful. The birds use it to stick their meals in to save it for later.
Yeah, type of shrike.
Yeah. And then we have the Rubus nepalensis, the Nepalese raspberry, or it could be the Himalayan raspberry. And then we have the flower. The flower is about an inch and a half. And look at the size of the hornet here. It's one of the pollinators, is Vespa viva. You've got the berries and the flowers. And then some interesting insects. You've got the Himalayan tortoiseshell, and also then this is one of the Dorcas nepalensis, which is the stag beetle, and they are like 3 inches or more from tip to tip. This is the male with its long mandibles, and there's a lot of parsley family plants in the Apiaceae family, and here are some examples of that. Trachidium roylii, and you've got the milk parsley here, and a lot of pollinators. Oh, and also they also have a lot of angelicas and heracleums, which we have also in our flora. And gentians are they have quite a few different species and genera of in the gentian family. This one is the spur gentian. If you notice here, it's got spurs and it looks like Aquilegia. And they do have a native Aquilegia there, which we didn't see at that time. This is, right.
Helenia.
Yeah, Helenia. And here are some other wildflowers. You've got Dipsacus, a teasel, the Himalayan teasel.
Endemic.
It's endemic to the area. And then you've got several types of anemone. This is the river anemone. It likes to be in very wet areas, and it's and this is the anemone vitifolia, meaning grape leaf anemone. I didn't get a picture of the leaves, but it looks like grape leaves. And they have epilobium in their flora, and this is the royal willowherb in the Onagraceae family, which is the
Evening primrose
evening
family.
primrose family. Then we have some more plants, more flowers. This is Androsacia sarmentosa. And the primrose family, they're tiny little rock plants, rock flowers. And then we have the Himalayan yew with the seed.
The yarrow.
The yarrow.
Surrounding
oro, right.
the seed.
The seed. And then we have a hemiphragma heterophyllum. And the name heterophyllum indicates that it's got two kinds of leaves. So later on, or during flower, that puts out a different kind of leaf. It's almost linear, like linear folia type, like linear, like very like lines, narrow leaf. So we're here up at the top of the ridge of our of Tom Raccoon, and we see a lot of waterfalls in the background, in the foreground, and then there was this Himalayan griffon vulture flying by, so that was very nice. And this is a closer up picture. It's flying real fast, so this is the best I could get. So it almost looks like our turkey vulture. It's got that white patch, kind of T. And then we have Campanulaceae, the campanule family, and there seems to be quite a few also in the Himalaya. This is the small leaf, cyananthus. As you can see, the leaves are these are the leaves. They're quite small. And then we have a different campanula. I haven't been able to find the name for this one, this species yet. Oops. And going back here, taking notice of the calyx here. This is white and hairy. There's another campanula later, another cyananthus later that looks very similar but different. We have the stonecrop family. This is Rhodiola quadrifida. And then we have the same genus, Rhodiola trifida. And the tri is the three. I guess fida is, I'm not sure what fida means.
Oh,
the
three
leaves.
lobes.
Yeah, 3 lobes. And if you see the leaves here, it ends with
3 divisions.
That 3 divisions, where this one is different.
Did you mention one was on a tree?
Oh yeah, this one is, so this grows on limestone and this grows on more organic matter in tree stumps and things like that. And this is, we saw 3 kinds of orchids. This is the Habenaria ensifolia, and it's a pretty amazing orchid. It's just bizarre with these spur-like things hanging like they're like out to grab you. And then another orchid is the Satyrium nepalensis, and that's like about 6 inches tall. And the locals call the bullocks because the way the spurs hang are positioned looks like bullhorns. Here we have another orchid on the left side. It's Ponderochus cuculata. I don't have the common name for this. And we have on the right side here, Buxus, the Himalayan boxwood. And here we have a Sarcococa saligna, which is the willow leaf Sarcococa. And this is a very popular landscape plant that the Europeans use. And also here in the US.
Well, a different species, but the same genus.
Yes, yes. And here, this is the limestone cliff that we walked along the ridge, and then we went back down back to the to our campground. We have Edelweiss. This Switzerland has it, right? Similar, same genus probably.
Yeah, same genus, but different
species, right? This is the Himalayan Edelweiss. It hasn't fully, the flower hasn't fully opened. These are just the bracts. No,
well,
I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, looks like.
So, and then I found these interesting juncus. It's the Thompson's juncus. The flowers are pure white and they're quite large, about 1/2 inch in width, quite large. And they have actia, as we have actias. And this is Spicata var acuminata, the Himalayan barberry that we were looking at the beginning.
Beanberry.
Baneberry. What did I say? Barberry? Excuse me.
That's the next.
So this is the Jeshki, it's pronounced Jeshki barberry. One of the many barberries that they have.
Yeah, well represented in most with thorns.
Right, and here's the fruit, very pretty. And then we came across the langurs, the local langurs. It's native to this area. And that's the mom with the baby, and these are the other family members. And this is at elevation 9,500 feet, and this is the group picture with Theo, Arvind, Ashok, Joe, Ken, me, and 2 other crew. His Theo's team member. And then we took a day off and I presented a botany class to the local Mati group. Mati means earth, and this is a women's empowering group that teaches women how to be economically independent. So all the money they earn from the homestays, they get to keep, not their husband. And they learn how to be independent and make a living for themselves. And this is Theo's wife, Malika, and she's the head. She co-founded this organization, and these are all her members that have homestays and
Sure, Reka.
Right. So Reka, this is Reka, and she is our homestay host.
Yeah, it was just wonderful every morning having conversations with her and every evening about the day's activities. She was always very interested.
So here on our second trip is 4 nights to Kaliatop. So we start off at the base camp, which is at Theo's house, and we start up for the day to get to the camp, to our first camp. And then we stay there 1 night and continue to get to the second camp. We stay there for 2 nights, and we hiked up to So Ken and Joe and Theo went to the top of the Himalaya top. Me and Arvind and Ashok didn't stay behind because we were exhausted from the lack of oxygen. And then they went back down, back to camp. And then on the third day, we hiked back up here and then went down to a hostel on the fourth night. And then we left the fifth day down to the bottom here to get picked up by the team. So here the elevation reaching from 7546 to 12303. Here's the group, the team packing up. And us waiting for the team to finish packing up while we enjoy the scenery. There's Arvind and Ashok, the two gentlemen, the two explorers. And then we get ready to hike up. And here is pack mules. We have pack mules to get in, to get up there. That's with all the equipment. And then we get up here to the next level, the first level, which is a little coon, a pond. It's called the Mesa coon. The locals built these stone stackings for probably when there's more water, they get water from it. And then we reach the next level, which is up a rock wall. So on the right side is the local forest, the local village forest. And then on the other side is part of the national forest, national park. And then we go through hiking up through forests, different forests of
Yeah, there is grazing, wood harvest
right.
in this area. And of course, some of it is overgrazed, especially the common land.
So you notice the trees are all misshapen and they're not very full, is that the local villagers go up to harvest the wood for firewood, for feeding the cattle. They have goats that they feed. And we continue. There's a lot of vegetation we have to get through. There's a lot of leeches because it's very wet. And this plant here on the left, it's called Ligularia and plexicollis. I don't know there's no common name for it. And they grow throughout these hillside. Oops. Some more of that.
With the Napaceae.
Yeah.
But of course, everything was dripping wet that entire day. We actually hiked with umbrellas.
So we reached Camp 1. And here Arvind is looking and enjoying the scenery. And this is what he's seeing.
A rainbow.
Yeah, a rainbow. And here's some more pictures of our camp area. And then in the middle of this picture is the Nepalese or the Himalayan slug, which is 5, if not 6 inches in length. It's huge. It's like a hand grenade. It was awesome. And then we have Ken picking up all the ranunculus acacia seeds, the buttercup family. They all hang on to him and they get dispersed.
Yeah, mainly from the genus Anemone.
Right. And there's Theo getting his morning coffee. And then we get into some very interesting plants. So this is in the gentian family, Swartia ciliata. And they're in wet meadows. They grow in wet meadows. They're about 12 inches in height. And they're pollinated by these 2 types of wasp in the Vespula, the Vespidae family. So this is Vespula structor, and this is Vespa vivax. It's the same one. The vivax is the same one that was pollinated, that was nectaring on the rubus, the raspberry. And here with our umbrellas, continuing to hike to our next camp. So our first encounter of the rhododendron forest that has rhododendron arboreum. This is wrong spelling. It's arboreum and campanulatum. And the arboreums are the tall ones, and the campanulatum are the shorter ones. And here, almost reaching our second camp.
You're in my way. I'm gonna go right through this.
Nearly, the mules were waiting for Arvind and Ashok to step aside, so they just hung out there, didn't want to walk through them. So here's our second campground, and here's some of the wildflowers we saw. This is the blue oxalis in the pea family, and some more parsley family. This is Pleurospermum brinosus. I gotta wear my glasses. And then there's some more. This is in the aster family. These two yellow plants. It's Tanacetum I can't pronounce that. Sorry. Yeah, Diplophyllum. Anyway, it's in the Tanacetum genus. And then the most interesting, I think, eye candy, as I call it, impatient sulcata. This is like 2 inches in length, deep purple, not deep purple, deep pink color. And they can get up to 10 feet tall. They're very happy. They grow amongst the rocks, and it's wet everywhere. So it's, it's a riparian, pretty much a very moist, loving plant. Here we have Impatiens Devendrae's balsam. This was actually newly described in 2010. And if you notice the petals here, what's this? The wings, it's fused and it looks like airplanes. Yeah, the different variations. And this is the rhododendron barbatum. It's in the heather family again, and these are the branches, and they kind of peel a little bit, and they can get 30 feet tall, and the broadleaf. And then barbatum indicates the barbs in the petiole of the leaves. There it is.
And of course, at this elevation, they do experience snowfall.
And here's the capsule. It's stellate hair, meaning the hair splits into, it's not a single hair, but the hair kind of splits.
Like a starburst.
It's a starburst, yeah. Thank you. And we have Bistorta vaccinifolia. If you see the leaves, they look like vaccinium, the huckleberries. It's in the buckwheat family. And then we have Parnassia. This is Whiteiana. It's in the staff vine family. They've kind of reclassified it
from the saxifrage.
So it's now in the Celastraceae family. And if you look at the 3 pictures, inset pictures here, it's a process where the plant where it prevents self-pollination. So the anthers ripe at an earlier stage so that it does not self-pollinate itself. So as the anthers senesce or start to die off, wither away, they descend and curl underneath. And then the next stage is the ovary develops from another from being cross-pollinated. So if you see, notice the anthers all bend down, descend below it. And if you're not that observant, you think it's a female plant and a male plant, and a pistillate plant, a flower, and a what is it?
Staminate.
Staminate flower.
So you have to look at a population to figure that out.
Right. Because at first I thought it was two, a male plant and a pistillate and a staminate flower, but it wasn't. And here's the ovaries. And here is the Cyanthus lobatus. And I mentioned before, the other one had white hairs on it. This one's black. And the leaves are lobed, where the other ones was smaller, finer leaves. So also has these hairs around the corolla, but because it's raining, you can't, it's not as fuzzy as the one before. So, this is another campanula. It's the round leaf bellflower. The flowers are quite large. It's about 1.5 inches to 2 inches across. And they're kind of vine-like, this one. And this is the seed capsule after all the petals fell off. It may not be viable because it looks pretty bruised and looks kind of dead, brown.
So we better keep
That's all,
moving.
yeah. So this is Silene indica. It's inflated. It looks pretty cool. It's got veins and
On the calyx.
on the calyx. And this is a Himalaya ella auriculata, which is the earleaf sawwort. And it's just very interesting to see different kinds of plants. That is not Californian plants. So this is a new genus for me, and I'm in love with it, as with the Sauceria. This is Polygonum paniculatum. And we have a type of, this used to be formerly in the Geum genus. They've now changed it to the Acostoma stylus elata in the rose family. And then we have Gaultheria numelarioides, and here is the fruit, and the leaves are kind of roundish. That's why it's called numelarioides. And here we have another Gaultheria, which is Trichophylla, the Himalayan snowberry. It's close to the ground. It's a ground cover, and it's got little hairs along the leaves. And another gentian, the blue feltwort, and it's a beautiful perennial flower. It's about like maybe 3/4 of an inch in width. And then we have some time up. We arrived up at the Kulia Bugyal, meaning meadow. And this is the Kulia, the meadow where we get to the top. And while we wait for Ken and Joe to come back, we're horsing around. And we're keying plants. Here, different Cirsium verutum. It's another thistle. And we have, this is a beautiful Beastorta, macrophylla, and the flower head's like about 1.5 inch in length. So it's pretty big. And then you've got a pollinator, Bombus miniatus. And this is the rhododendron campanulatum forest. And if you see, this is Arvind Kumar. I think, how tall is he? 5-ish feet in height. So these are like almost 5 feet. So they grow like that because of the heavy snow every year. They get annual snowfall up there, so they get dwarfed. And then the campanulatum have these felt-like hairs on the back of the leaves, and the capsules are smooth. Would you like to say something?
Well, we would have probably had to be there in June to see these 3 rhododendron species in flower. So they were in fruit during our visit.
And there were quite a lot of pedicularis species. And so here I actually captured 4 species. The 4th one is in the next page, next slide. So this is pedicularis punctata, and there's the arrow, and the defining key is the gala. It is corkscrewed, but kind of backwards. And then the pedicularis gracilis has these hairs along the stem, and it's on the ridges of the stem rather than the whole stem, but then it's raining. And you can't, I guess that's they're on the edges of the ridges of the stem. And then you have pedicularis pinctinata var rose, and the pinctinata, the pedicularis pinctata has some white patches where variety rosea is all rose color, hence the name. And then we have a yellow pedicularis, Hofmeisteri, and we have some in seed as well. Would you like?
Well, I just might mention a lot of the genera are familiar because once one gets above 3,000 feet or 1,000 meters, we're actually experiencing a temperate flora, like our temperate flora with many of the same genera.
And here we're at the top of Kalia Top, as Ken mentioned. And here he is admiring the Danthonian Kashmiriana.
So we're at 12,303. And if it hadn't been the monsoon, we possibly would have seen Nanda Devi, 24,000 foot peak to the northwest. But what we were able to see was the immediate foreground with the Danthonia and about 100 yards beyond.
So then the next day we hiked out of there, and this is, we arrived at the hostel down below the summit. And this is the view we saw. The sky just was clearing out. We only had like a few minutes of window time to actually see the mountains. And this is the view looking towards the Himalayan range, the Pancha Chuli, which has 5 mountains. These are it. And on a clear day, you can actually see much more than that, but this is all we got to see. And as we descend the next morning, we go through the forest, and as you can see, the trees are very upright and very columnar, and that is due to local people harvesting for fodder for their livestock, as you see on the picture on the left, on the right, sorry, dyslexic. And we have a local sheep herder, and he actually camps out here in the wilderness with, there's actually his sheepdog hanging out. And there's Ken. We're descending to the last mile down to the bottom to our destination to get picked up by the car. And there's our crew waiting for us to come down. And we are at the end of that journey, and we were waiting for the car, and we saw a Hypericum choicianum, which is in the Hypericum family. And here's at the bend. Oh, it's called Blenty Bend, and we're just waiting for the car. And then so that is the stream that we had to cross in order to get down to Blenty Bend. And it was a little scary because it was very slippery. And then the very next day we had to leave to catch our planes. Arvind had to leave and catch a connecting plane, and we are on to Agra and Jaipur later on. But there were landslides because of the torrential rains we had for the last few days. There were landslides with fatalities. Some people died in some of the landslides. And we had to actually climb out of some of the landslides with a connecting car on the other side of the landslide. So you see our luggages at the background. So from the village of Munsyari, we were driven up to this section, and we had to have our luggage carried across these boulders. And you can see us climb all over it. And that's just not one landslide. We have others as well. Roads are washed out. And here's Joe waiting for our car to decide when to cross. And then here, a bigger landslide. And these are people just rushing to get out. So they just went, so the whole road just washed away. And after that, India, we went on to Europe, and we were able to meet up with the Fenerdys in Vienna. And we were able to have some mighty good meals, lots of meat in a local pub in Vienna. And then we all went off to London to see my sister while Ken took off to, where'd you go?
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. So this is Regent's Canal, and fall color is happening. And then when he came to meet up with me in London again, we went to Scotland to the Loch Ness. And this is the scene that we're standing right in there in the Loch Ness. And then here we're at the Kew Garden. And if you look at this is the Quercus lobata, the valley oak from California. And with him holding the leaf, and with this slide, we are going home.
Yay.
Yay. We are done. Thank you very much for staying on with us. How do we,
Well,
Vivian?
we have a few questions.
Okay. How do I maybe get, I can.
So
get out of the-
way back at the beginning, that camellia tree in, I believe, Hong Kong, the question was, does the bark peel like the madrone does?
As far as I could see, it didn't peel when we were there. I don't think it was, because it's all very smooth. I didn't see any, sometimes when you see peeling bark, you see different layers of peel at different stages. So.
And then a question about the Indonesia part. Does the stabbing of the nutmeg trees shorten their lifespan? And do you know how long does it take the trees to get large enough to produce?
Oh, that's a good question.
You probably don't know. Well, I guess we'll probably have to look that one up.
But they were large trees.
Yeah. So I would say they have to get at least 10 to 15 feet before they can start producing. That's
Okay.
what I would imagine.
And several comments about the amazing yarrow, Achillea millefolium. It's not just circumpolar, it's also native in Patagonia. Several people.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Which is pretty amazing.
Yes, very
Yeah,
good.
certainly.
Thanks for sharing that.
Southern Hemisphere also.
I think one of the impatiens said it's invasive in England in wild areas.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of nice comments. Judy commented that Joe would totally drive his van over that river.
Oh, yeah, no problem. He's right with the local people right there.
Let me just check, make sure I didn't got all the YouTube ones. Oh, another question. Did you know that long snake was poisonous when you took the photo?
Yeah, no, when I took it, I did not know, but I suspect because the head, with all tropical reptiles, you want to consider them harmful. They're not harmful, and then take the consequences. So I made sure, and I had my long lens, and I made sure I was like at least 5 to 6 feet away, so that if it decides to spring at me, I can have an extra 3 feet to jump back. I was very, very gentle and walking away from it, but then it crawled away and went inside the garden. It was more afraid of me than me of it.
Okay. Vivian, I think I've gone through all the questions. Johanna, did you see any? Oh, I don't know if she's still there. So just wanted to plug California Native Plant Society. This is a CNPS program, and we're our group works to preserve California's amazing plants and thus biodiversity. So if you're not a member, think about joining and supporting all the conservation work and education from CNPS, and you can see the, just go to cnps.org, you can join.
Thanks, Madeline. Thanks, Dee and Ken. It was an amazing presentation. It makes me wish we could, wish you could travel and see all of that maybe someday. I guess we're at an end. We're a little bit over time, so I really
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, not at all. I think that was wonderful. And I appreciate everyone staying around. It was great.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have one last question. Do you have a favorite plant, a favorite flower plant from your trip?
So my favorite plant is actually the giant impatiens. That was really, really, I mean, you look at it and it's 2 inches in length. But I have a new favorite genus, which is the Sauceria, which there were more other species in that genus in higher elevation, which I was not able to get up. So, but I saw pretty pictures of it.
And how about Ken? Does Ken have a favorite too?
Well, of course, I would have loved to have seen the various rhododendrons. There was a range of colors, and of course that was not to be, and we didn't plan on that. But seeing rhododendron arboreum 60 feet tall, just totally amazing. So I would say that was my favorite moment. And I certainly like rhododendrons, so I'm going to call them as a group, my favorite plants of the Himalaya.
Well, thank you both. And it was fun seeing Arvind and Ashok and Joe with you too. And I guess we're going to sign off tonight since it is getting a bit late. And so thanks everybody for joining us.
Quickly, thank you, Arvind and Ashok, for organizing the India trip.
Yeah, trip of a lifetime, Arvind, Ashok.
All right.
Thanks again.
All right,
Bye.
thank you, everybody.
Bye. Oh, how do I get out? How do I download?
Thank you.
How do I download this?